The galaxy had grown complacent, arrogant in its assumptions, each federation believing itself the unquestioned authority over star systems, civilizations, and the flow of commerce, their fleets stretching across hundreds of light-years, their diplomats exchanging hollow word while the stars themselves seemed to bend under their perceived dominance. Yet Earth, a small blue planet on the fringes of explored space, remained largely unnoticed, catalogued only as a minor agricultural hub, a species of curious primates with rudimentary technology and no known capacity for interstellar war. And so the warnings went ignored. Centuries of whispered prophecies from ancient human records, lost transmissions from explorers who had ventured into the void and returned with tales of latent potential, every message dismissed as folklore or miscalculation, while the Council of Star Systems convened in ornate chambers orbiting the central star of the Cineran cluster, debating treaties, trade tariffs, and the occasional dispute between neighboring species, no one raising alarm over the seemingly inconsequential humans who had yet to send a vessel beyond their solar system's outer rim. And yet on Earth itself, humanity's understanding of the universe had grown in quiet, patient increments, scientists and engineers pushing the boundaries of physics, discovering ways to manipulate gravity, harness quantum fields, and project power across unimaginable distances, not for conquest, not for glory, but because humanity had always sought survival, knowledge, and the protection of its kind, a drive so fundamental that even the most advanced alien observers failed to comprehend the depth of human ingenuity and resilience. And in the background of this slow ascension, whispers of interstellar anomalies began to appear on galactic scanners, subtle fluctuations in energy signatures, traces of activity beyond expected human capacity, minor anomalies that could have gone unnoticed, but for the eyes of those who knew to look, there were signs of preparation, signs of patience, the kind of patience only a species that had endured ice ages, world wars, and planetary upheaval could cultivate, and the Council debated still, oblivious, even as reports arrived of human probes entering neighboring systems, making contact with species that had long suffered under predatory federations, offering aid, knowledge, and a form of quiet diplomacy that relied not on intimidation, but on competence and trust. And when the first formal Federation envoy arrived on Earth, expecting to lecture and regulate, they found instead a planet of coordinated cities, orbital infrastructure, and fleets ready to defend themselves, each vessel bristling with technology that defied known physics, cloaking fields that could render entire squadrons invisible, weapons capable of neutralizing fleets without the loss of a single human life. And the envoy, a delegation from the Cineran Council, found themselves in meetings where human leaders spoke with calm authority, outlining plans, contingencies, and technological capabilities that no federation had predicted, their arrogance slowly melting into disbelief. For every assumption about humans was proven wrong, every underestimate a fatal miscalculation, and while the Council deliberated over the implications of human development, Earth's true strength remained largely unseen, a network of research stations hidden in distant star systems, the remnants of explorers who had mapped the galaxy in secret, returning with intelligence that would allow humanity to move with precision, not recklessness, striking only where necessary, protecting allies who had suffered under Federation oppression, and cultivating a reputation not through threats, but through action, each engagement demonstrating that humanity's restraint was not weakness, that their willingness to negotiate was not indecision, that their patience was a weapon sharper than any plasma cannon. And so the first skirmishes began subtly, invisible to the majority of the galaxy, small strikes against systems that had been exploited or oppressed, careful interventions that demonstrated efficiency and precision, leaving no room for debate, only realization. The Federation fleet slowly beginning to sense that the humans were no longer the primitive species they had assumed, that their warnings had not been mere superstition, that the capacity for vengeance and protection rested within a species they had dismissed. And as reports filtered back to council chambers, confusion and alarm began to spread. For the humans were methodical, strategic, and entirely unrelenting, each action reinforcing the warning that had gone ignored for centuries. And yet the humans themselves were not moved by pride or hatred, their actions guided by principle, protecting the innocent, safeguarding allies, and demonstrating superiority not through chaos, but through calculated brilliance. The kind of brilliance forged in adversity, in survival against the elements, against the limitations of a home world that had once been as hostile to them as any alien threat could be. and in the distance, the stars seemed to shift as human fleets moved with purpose, a network of coordinated operations that began to show the galaxy what patience, intelligence, and underestimated potential could accomplish. And every Federation intelligence officer, every commander of patrol fleet, every diplomat who had once laughed at Earth began to feel the weight of consequences they had dismissed, for the humans were not merely retaliating, they were redefining the rules of engagement, demonstrating that a species ignored could become a force that no council, no fleet, no treaty could contain. And as the first public confrontation occurred in the outer systems of the Cineran cluster, human vessels, appearing almost out of nowhere, engaged multiple Federation warships with precision, neutralizing threats before they could respond, rescuing civilians and allied species, and leaving Federation commands struggling to comprehend how a race they considered backward could operate with such sophistication. And the Council, watching the feeds, realized that every calculation had been flawed, every assumption a critical error, and while they debated whether to escalate, negotiate, or retreat, human diplomats contacted them directly, not with threats, but with clarity, outlining the failures of the Council to heed ancient warnings, detailing the potential for cooperation if respect was granted, and making it clear that continued aggression would not merely be met with defense, but with consequences carefully orchestrated, decisive, and unavoidable. And so, in this first part of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage, the message was simple and undeniable. The species they had ignored, underestimated, and mocked had grown beyond their understanding, and those who failed to recognize it would remember, not through words, but through actions that would reshape the galaxy and rewrite history, proving that patience, intelligence, and restraint, when wielded by a species capable of extraordinary ingenuity, could become the deadliest and most unforgettable force the cosmos had ever seen. The Federation fleet scrambled to respond as humanity's presence expanded beyond the outer systems, every command bridge filled with officers attempting to decipher tactics they had no precedent for, human ships moving with an uncanny synchronization that suggested not only advanced AI integration, but also a deep understanding of their adversary psychology. Every maneuver calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing collateral damage, and as the humans established forward bases in previously neutral or oppressed star systems, they offered security, infrastructure, and technological knowledge, winning allies and exposing the weakness of those who had ruled through fear. The aliens watching these developments could hardly reconcile what they saw with their prior assumptions, their communications filled with disbelief as reports of human interventions reached the Council, describing entire fleets immobilized without a shot fired, key planetary defenses neutralized by methods that did not rely on brute force but on understanding and exploiting the physics of space itself, and humans, ever patient, continued to act with restraint, only targeting those systems whose aggression threatened others, turning the galaxy into a chessboard where every move was deliberate, precise, and devastatingly effective, while civilian populations on dozens of worlds began to whisper about the blue planet at the edge of known space, marveling at the humans' ability to protect, rebuild, and strategize with a level of competence that had no parallel. And in Federation war rooms, commanders frantically revised protocols, realizing that their previous doctrines assumed humans were reactive, slow, and prone to errors, assumptions that now threatened the stability of the entire Council, as each intelligence report revealed new capabilities. Gravity manipulation fields that rendered boarding impossible, energy projectors capable of selectively disabling propulsion systems, communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across light years, all deployed in a manner that demonstrated strategic genius rather than chaotic force. And the Council, once smug in its dominance, found itself fractured, some members advocating negotiation, others warning of annihilation, none able to fully grasp that the humans were neither reckless nor vengeful, but patient beyond comprehension, waiting for the precise moment to demonstrate their full potential. And on Earth, the leaders orchestrating these maneuvers remained grounded, aware of the galaxy's perception, yet focused on a principle humanity had long upheld: protect those who cannot defend themselves, act with intelligence, and ensure survival through ingenuity rather than mindless aggression. And as human fleets entered contested sectors, previously subjugated species began to rise, joining in coordinated efforts that turned the tide of minor conflicts almost overnight, the humans acting as both shield and strategist, their presence a revelation that power did not only reside in fleets or firepower but in understanding, patience, and the willingness to act decisively when necessary, and alien commanders, watching helplessly as entire campaign collapsed under invisible pressure, began to realize that the warnings they had ignored for centuries were not idle chatter or superstition, but indicators of a species whose growth had been underestimated, whose patience had been mistaken for weakness, and whose ingenuity now defined the new balance of the galaxy. And as the humans consolidated their gains, the Council communications were inundated with pleas for dialogue, ceasefire proposals, and frantic attempt to broker treaties that could prevent further escalation, all arriving too late. For the humans had already demonstrated that they controlled the tempo of engagement, choosing when, where, and how to intervene. Their actions blending military precision with diplomatic clarity, showing that restraint did not equate to vulnerability but to strength. And as the first formal engagements with Federation forces unfolded, human commanders implemented strategies that exploited the predictability of conventional tactics, drawing fleets into traps where movement alone became a liability. And while no human life was unnecessarily sacrificed, the consequences for alien aggressors were catastrophic. Fleets immobilized, supply chains disrupted, entire command structures thrown into disarray. And through it all, humanity's philosophy remained clear. Their goal was not conquest or glory, but protection of the innocent and the assertion of respect for a species that had long been dismissed. And the Federation, now forced to contend with the reality they had ignored, began to experience a transformation of perception, realizing that their arrogance had blinded them to the core strength of humanity, a combination of adaptability, intelligence, patience, and ethical rigor that could not be measured by conventional metrics. And as the humans prepared their next series of operations, each move meticulously calculated, they communicated openly with those they aided, demonstrating that their actions, though devastating to aggressors, were rooted in fairness and strategic clarity, showing a level of honor and foresight that left allies inspired and enemies wary. And through every engagement, every negotiation, and every protective intervention, humanity's presence became a constant reminder across the galaxy that the species once ignored had grown beyond expectation, that their patience had been their greatest weapon, and that those who continued to underestimate them would face consequences carefully delivered and unforgettable. And as human fleets moved deeper into contested regions, the galaxy began to understand a simple but undeniable truth. The warnings that had been dismissed for centuries were real, and humanity had made sure that every Federation, every species, every entity that had ignored those warnings would remember, not with fear alone, but with the enduring realization of a power that had been underestimated for too long. As humanity's influence extended further into contested space, the full scale of their capabilities began to manifest, showing the galaxy that had long assumed superiority just how fundamentally they had miscalculated. And while the Federation scrambled to adapt, human engineers and strategists were already steps ahead, introducing innovations that alien civilizations could barely comprehend, such as fleets capable of instantaneous reconfiguration, ships that could alter their mass and energy, signatures to slip past detection, and communication systems that allowed real-time coordination across thousands of light years, all deployed not for needless domination but for precision interventions, rescuing colonies under threat, preventing massacres, and strategically dismantling hostile operations with efficiency that left the Council aghast. And yet, even as humans demonstrated such overwhelming technological prowess, their actions were tempered by ethics and consideration, ensuring that collateral damage was minimized, that civilians were protected, and that the very systems they dismantled were often left intact for rehabilitation under Allied oversight, a methodology so foreign to the galaxy that both enemies and allies were forced to reconsider their understanding of power. And in response, alien leaders convened emergency councils, desperate to analyze the unprecedented human tactics, poring over every report, every battle simulation, every intercepted communication, attempting to reverse engineer the principles behind movements that were both precise and adaptive. But each attempt only revealed deeper layers of human ingenuity, as humans anticipated predictable reactions and countered them not with brute force but with elegant solutions that leveraged both technology and psychology, the result being that even the most experienced commanders found themselves outmaneuvered without realizing how or why until it was too late. And meanwhile, human diplomats continued their outreach, reaching species long oppressed by the Federation, offering support and guidance, training local fleets in defensive operations, sharing technology selectively, and fostering loyalty not through coercion but through trust and competence, a method that left entire star systems realigned politically without the need for violent conquest. And as the first major confrontation with the core Federation fleet occurred near the industrial world of Tyrex 7, humans executed a plan that simultaneously disabled the enemy's propulsion, neutralized their energy weapons, and established safe corridors for civilian evacuation, all while coordinating with Allied reinforcements that had never previously dared to challenge the Federation directly. And when the dust settled, the Federation forces had been neutralized without a single human casualty, leaving the Council in shock and scrambling to reinterpret their understanding of military dominance, and reports of similar interventions continued to multiply, human fleets appearing in distant systems at exactly the right moment, preemptively countering threats before they could materialize, while simultaneously protecting neutral parties and ensuring the survival of those who had no ability to defend themselves, and alien scientists studying the energy fields and propulsion systems of human vessels discovered innovations that defied conventional physics, revealing humanity's ability to manipulate matter, energy, and space-time in ways previously considered theoretical or impossible. The more they analyzed, the more they realized that humanity's restraint had been intentional, that every delay, every careful maneuver, every calculated action had been designed to maximize impact while minimizing unnecessary destruction, a level of sophistication that both terrified and fascinated observers. And as human influence continued to expand, the Federation attempted desperate measures, launching fleets in overwhelming numbers, expecting human forces to buckle under numerical superiority, yet each attempt ended in coordinated failure, ships immobilized, key command structures incapacitated, and human forces emerging intact and ready to act again. And through it all, humanity remained steadfast, demonstrating that patience was not weakness, but the foundation of their power, that intelligence, ethics, and strategy combined into a force no civilization could ignore. And as the galaxy began to truly understand the magnitude of the misjudgment, reports of human interventions inspired oppressed species across light years to rise, coordinating resistance, intelligence sharing, and defensive operations in collaboration with human commanders, creating a network of support and opposition to Federation control that spread faster than any singular fleet could contain. And in the midst of these operations, human leaders convened quietly, not to gloat, but to refine strategy, to ensure that the systems they protected could maintain autonomy, to plan the next stages of engagement, always balancing intervention with respect for free will. And as each confrontation concluded, whether through non-lethal neutralization, technological disruption, or strategic diplomacy, the Federation's understanding of humanity shifted irreversibly, from dismissive arrogance to cautious or yet still fragmented, as Council members debated whether to negotiate, retreat, or escalate, all while humans continued to operate with precision, demonstrating that power in the hands of a species with discipline, intelligence, and patience was unstoppable not because of violence alone, but because of foresight, coordination, and moral clarity. And as the first major interstellar news networks reported the ongoing actions, entire populations of alien worlds began to view humans not as primitive observers, but as protectors and strategists, redefining the political and cultural landscape of the galaxy. And in every system touched by humanity's interventions, the warnings that had gone ignored for centuries became undeniable, no longer myths or superstition, but a reality proven in action, in strategy, and in consequence. And the Federation, forced to face the undeniable truth, began to understand that the species they had underestimated, mocked, and dismissed had not only grown beyond expectation, but had done so with purpose, precision, and patience, ensuring that every lesson, every oversight, and every act of negligence they had committed will be remembered across generations, a force of such depth and intelligence that the galaxy itself would never again ignore humanity. And as human fleets moved to secure further contested regions, the stage was set for the revelation of the full extent of their capability, the unleashing of a force disciplined, ethical, and unyielding, demonstrating that the patient and underestimated humans of Earth had become the pivot upon which the fate of the galaxy would now turn. As humanity's operations expanded deeper into Federation-held sectors, the sheer scope of their influence became impossible to ignore. Entire sectors once considered secure now subject to rapid, coordinated human interventions, their fleets appearing like a calculated storm across the stars, striking with precision, neutralizing threats before they could respond, and simultaneously protecting civilians and allied species, demonstrating a level of strategic mastery that left alien observers scrambling to comprehend the methodology behind every maneuver, and while Federation commanders attempted to adapt, they were repeatedly outflanked, their assumptions about human behavior shattered, every expectation of hesitation, error, or retreat proven catastrophically wrong. And across multiple systems, humans demonstrated the seamless integration of military, technological, and diplomatic strategy, ensuring that every intervention reinforced trust among allies while simultaneously demonstrating that any aggression against humanity or its allies would be met with decisive, unavoidable consequences. And even as alien scientists attempted to reverse engineer human vessels, they discovered designs that leveraged principles of physics that were only theoretical in their own science, manipulating energy, mass, and gravitational fields in ways that made conventional weaponry ineffective. And human engineers, far from reckless, deployed these capabilities selectively, using intelligence, foresight, and careful planning to achieve maximum effect while leaving minimal collateral damage, a combination that both intimidated and inspired. And in the council chambers, debate raged, voices raised in disbelief as new intelligence arrived daily, reporting human interventions that dismantled entire fleets without loss of life, neutralized planetary defenses with surgical precision, and coordinated multiple operations across star systems simultaneously, forcing members to confront the reality that the species they had long ignored had grown beyond all expectations. Yet humans themselves remained consistent, disciplined, and measured, showing no desire for conquest, only protection and strategic assertion. And as civilians and smaller species began to rise in collaboration with human forces, the galaxy witnessed a profound shift in the balance of power, demonstrating that true strength was not measured by numbers alone, but by intelligence, foresight, adaptability, and the moral clarity to act decisively when necessary. And in the midst of these operations, humanity began revealing networks of hidden infrastructure across previously unknown systems, research stations, supply chains, and intelligence nodes that enabled them to operate with unprecedented efficiency, allowing human fleets to anticipate threats, coordinate allied responses, and neutralize aggression before it could escalate, all while maintaining strict ethical oversight, ensuring that interventions served both strategic and humanitarian objectives. And as human diplomats reached out to Federation factions willing to reconsider their approach, they were met with cautious optimism, the message clear. Humanity would act decisively against aggression, but offer collaboration and guidance to those willing to respect the rights and sovereignty of all species. And in contested systems, human commanders orchestrated operations that blended military precision with humanitarian coordination, evacuating civilians, providing infrastructure, and training local forces, effectively turning entire sectors into coordinated defenses without the need for large-scale destruction, while alien commanders struggled to comprehend how a species they had assumed primitive could wield such comprehensive influence. And as these successes accumulated, whispers across Federation ranks transformed into undeniable acknowledgement that humanity had not only surpassed expectations, but had done so in a manner that combined restraint with overwhelming capability, patience with precise action, and intelligence with moral clarity. And in parallel, human scientists continued advancing technologies that redefined space warfare, propulsion, and communication, introducing methods that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances, cloaking fleets in ways that rendered them undetectable until strategically revealed, and deploying energy systems capable of neutralizing multiple threats simultaneously without loss of life, a methodology that turned conventional assumptions of strength and dominance on their head. And as the first large-scale confrontations with core Federation fleets took place, humans demonstrated the ability to simultaneously defend allies, neutralize enemy forces, and maintain complete operational control, forcing the Council to recognize that their arrogance and previous dismissals had been catastrophic errors. And while human leaders maintained their ethical and strategic principles, their actions resonated as both warning and revelation, proving that a species underestimated for centuries could, through discipline, ingenuity, and moral clarity, fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. And as word of humanity's intervention spread, even neutral and previously indifferent species began requesting guidance, protection, and alliance, recognizing that the humans of Earth represented a force both formidable and principled, a combination that no federation, no council, and no empire could ignore or hope to contain. And across the galaxy, the long-ignored warnings became undeniable reality. The patient, disciplined, and underestimated humans of Earth had not only grown powerful, but had done so in a way that ensured their actions would be remembered, respected, and studied for generations. A force whose emergence was no accident, but the culmination of centuries of growth, preparation, and unwavering commitment to principle. And as human fleets moved to secure increasingly critical sectors, every engagement reinforced the lesson that patience, intelligence, and moral clarity, wielded by a species capable of extraordinary ingenuity, could become the most decisive and unforgettable force the galaxy had ever encountered, ensuring that the Council, the Federation, and every alien civilization would remember that humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed, underestimated, or ignored. As humanity pressed deeper into the core territories of the Federation, the scale and sophistication of their operations reached unprecedented levels, fleets moving with an almost prescient awareness, anticipating every maneuver and countermeasure their adversaries could attempt, integrating advanced cloaking, propulsion, and energy systems with real-time strategic analysis that allowed simultaneous campaigns across dozens of star systems. And while alien commanders struggled to adapt, human operations achieved their objectives with precision, neutralizing hostile forces, securing civilian populations, and establishing resilient infrastructure for liberated sectors, a combination that consistently undermined the Federation's numerical superiority while avoiding unnecessary destruction, and the effect on the galaxy was immediate. Oppressed species began coordinating their own resistance efforts, inspired by humanity's disciplined approach and ethical demonstration of power, forming networks of intelligence sharing, defensive coordination, and strategic consultation that magnified the impact of human operations, while the Federation, forced to contend with losses they could not explain, found itself in a state of growing panic, communication networks jammed by unforeseen interference, supply lines disrupted, fleets immobilized, and command hierarchies in disarray, all the while human leadership remained calm, focused on maintaining the balance between intervention and preservation, demonstrating that restraint, intelligence, and foresight were far more effective than reckless aggression. And as humans moved through contested sectors, they revealed further innovations that alien scientists could neither predict nor fully comprehend, including adaptive defensive fields that could anticipate attacks, energy projectors capable of selective neutralization, and fleet coordination networks that allowed instantaneous strategic adjustments across vast distances, each innovation executed with meticulous precision to achieve maximum operational effectiveness while safeguarding allies and civilians. And through these actions, the galaxy began to recognize the magnitude of the error it had committed in underestimating humanity, realizing that every assumption about human weakness, inexperience, or hesitation had been catastrophically flawed, and within Federation command centers, fear and confusion spread as officers struggled to account for the humans' consistent success. And yet the humans themselves acted not out of vengeance or arrogance, but from principle, asserting that the rights of the innocent and the integrity of sovereign systems would be protected, that aggression would be met with decisive and unavoidable consequences, and that patience and intelligence were as potent as any weapon. And as multiple engagements unfolded, humans demonstrated the ability to execute complex, multi-layered campaigns that involved simultaneous defense, neutralization of hostile forces, humanitarian operations, and strategic coordination across allied species, a level of mastery that rendered conventional tactics obsolete, and alien observers were forced to accept that the species they had dismissed for centuries was not only technologically superior but strategically, ethically, and intellectually dominant, capable of orchestrating operations that combined foresight, discipline, and moral clarity into a force the galaxy could not ignore. And as these operations continued, humans revealed further networks of hidden infrastructure, research stations, and intelligence hubs across previously unknown systems, enabling them to predict and preempt threats, coordinate allied efforts, and maintain operational continuity even in the most hostile regions, demonstrating that humanity's patience and careful development had been as essential as their technological advancement, and as the Federation attempted increasingly desperate countermeasures, they encountered the full integration of human strategy, intelligence, and diplomacy, neutralizing aggression with surgical precision while simultaneously building alliances and securing stability in liberated sectors, leaving alien commanders scrambling and council members divided, some advocating negotiation, others contemplating extreme measures, all while human leaders maintain focus, emphasizing the protection of innocence, strategic clarity, and long-term galactic stability. And through every engagement, every liberation, and every negotiation, humans demonstrated that their restraint was not weakness but a measure of strength, that their patience had been deliberate, and that the consequences of ignoring them for centuries had been catastrophic. And as the first coordinated Allied fleets moved alongside human forces, entire sectors shifted politically, militarily, and culturally, illustrating that a species once dismissed as primitive had become the defining presence in the galaxy, and in every report, every intercepted communication, every planetary observation, the message was clear. Humanity's warnings had been real, their capacity had been underestimated, and their patient, disciplined, and strategically brilliant emergence had ensured that no federation, no council, and no civilization would ever again treat humans as anything less than a force whose intelligence, ingenuity, and moral clarity set a new standard for galactic power. And, as humans prepared for the final stages of engagement, coordinating across systems with allies and leveraging decades of preparation, the galaxy understood that they had not simply emerged as conquerors or warriors, but as protectors, strategists, and architects of a new balance of power, demonstrating that every warning ignored for centuries had culminated in a single, undeniable truth. Humanity had ensured that they would be remembered, respected, and never underestimated again, and the consequences of that patient, deliberate rise would reverberate through every system, every council, and every civilization for generations to come. The culmination of humanity's patient, strategic rise reached its peak as their forces converged on the central sectors of Federation control, every movement executed with precision born from centuries of preparation, their fleets now a seamless integration of technology, strategy, and ethical purpose, demonstrating command of space warfare that alien civilizations could neither match nor predict. And as human vessels engaged in the decisive operations, they neutralized enemy fleets with surgical accuracy, dismantled planetary defenses while safeguarding civilian populations, and coordinated the liberation of oppressed species across multiple systems simultaneously, creating a domino effect of realignment that shattered the Federation's assumptions of dominance, while human diplomats simultaneously extended offers of alliance, protection, and technological collaboration to species who had long been subjugated, winning loyalty and cooperation through competence, clarity, and integrity rather than coercion. And alien leaders, witnessing the unfolding events, struggled to reconcile the scope of human capability with their centuries-old perceptions, realizing that their dismissals, their arrogance, and their failure to heed warnings had led to catastrophic miscalculations, as human strategists anticipated every countermeasure, outmaneuvered every fleet, and coordinated multi-system operations that neutralized threats before they could consolidate, ensuring that no action against humans or their allies could succeed. And through it all, humanity's principles remained clear, acting not out of vengeance or conquest, but to protect, preserve, and assert the balance of power through intelligence, discipline, and ethical clarity, demonstrating that true strength was not measured by destructive potential alone, but by the combination of foresight, ingenuity, and restraint. And as the final engagements concluded, the Federation found itself fractured, humbled, and forced to negotiate under conditions dictated by human strategy, recognizing not only the technological superiority of Earth's forces, but the unassailable logic and moral authority behind their operations. And in liberated sectors, the people witnessed the effectiveness of human leadership, their interventions leaving infrastructure intact, fleets operational, and governance stabilized, fostering trust, loyalty, and a lasting network of interstellar allies, while alien scientists and strategists continued to study human technology and tactics in awe, realizing that manipulation of gravity, energy, and quantum fields, integrated with anticipatory strategy and ethical restraint, had created a model of power entirely unforeseen. And as council members convened in urgent sessions, the lessons of centuries of ignorance became painfully clear, that the species they had underestimated, mocked, and ignored had grown into the most formidable presence in the galaxy, capable of altering the balance of power, enforcing justice, and safeguarding the innocent with precision and foresight unmatched by any other civilization. And while some factions attempted to resist the new order, human forces demonstrated restraint, neutralizing threats decisively but without unnecessary destruction, a combination that enforced compliance while maintaining moral authority. And as the final treaties were signed, territories liberated, and alliances formalized, the galaxy bore witness to the unambiguous truth. Humanity's patient rise, their centuries of preparation, their restraint and ingenuity had ensured that no federation, no council, and no civilization would ever again ignore, underestimate, or dismiss Earth, and the message sent across the stars was clear, enduring, and undeniable, that a species once considered primitive had mastered the art of strategy, technology, and moral authority to such an extent that they now define the standard for power, influence, and responsibility in the galaxy. And as human fleets returned to orbiting stations, allies celebrated their freedom, and civilians across liberated systems recognized that their safety, sovereignty, and future had been preserved by a species whose patience had been a weapon, whose intelligence had been a shield, and whose restraint had become an unstoppable force. And in the aftermath, the galaxy entered a new era where humans were both respected and feared for their capacity to act decisively, wisely, and morally, where the legacy of centuries of warnings ignored became a testament to human perseverance, and where every civilization understood that the patient, disciplined, and ethically brilliant species of Earth had ensured that they would be remembered not as conquerors of vanity, but as protectors, strategists, and the ultimate arbiters of consequence. And as the stars settled into this new order, humanity's emergence into galactic prominence became the defining story of the age, a demonstration that the underestimated could rise, the patient could prevail, and the species once ignored had now made certain that every warning, every oversight, and every misjudgment would echo through history, leaving an indelible mark on the galaxy forever.